So welcome to another episode of the Elite Agent Masterclass. Today, I have got the great pleasure of having Mr. Perry Power joining us on the pod. Perry has got a long history in the industry. He's a very, very well-known name. For anyone that doesn't know of him, you need to get out from underneath your rock. This guy is very prominent, shares so much gold and value with the industry, which is one topic I want to pick up with you, Perry. But first off, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. I was worried what you're going to say then after the word long. He's got a really long, and then luckily it was something to do with estate agency. Because there's nothing else to do with me that you could associate with long, I can assure you. And it's huge a state of me because I've literally, as I just said off air, I've just come off of a absolute spanking on the tennis court. But here we are.
And like we're talking about offline, you love your tennis and you played well, and receiving a spanking when you're playing well ain't such a bad thing.
So here's the thing, right? Let's link it back to estate agency, which I always do. It's like when you lose that listing, but you couldn't have done anything more to try and win it. I say to our guys, did you deep down, do you know you've done everything? Did you touch them 3 times before you knocked on the door? That's one of my rules, right? Touch is a bit extreme, but you get what I mean. Like, let's not get arrested. But and they're like, I didn't touch base with them the night before, the morning of, and I'm like, then you've lost. You've been beat. You lost. Take the L. Move on. So yeah, same with the tennis. I was playing well. I lost. Better man beat me. High five to him. Moving on.
Lessons learned. Lots to take away for the next match.
Have you watched the Roger Federer address of the at the university?
Yes, I have.
Dude, that's a lot. That's life lessons for like everybody, not just tennis players, but estate agency and everything.
Unreal, absolutely unreal. Different level of character and caliber. And what was it? What was he shared in that? This is again relevant back to estate agency in so much as he is deemed one of the best players in history, and yet if you actually look at his performance in terms of points won, it was something like 52 to 54% in his career of the points that he actually won.
I think it's 51%.
Right. Okay. So marginal gains, like the little 1%. So you've already, in less than 2 minutes of us hitting record, got an absolute piece of gold there for people that are listening in. Those your 3 touch point rule, and so they're the little 1%, aren't they? They're the bits that are going to make a significant difference in the bigger picture. I mean, sending a message the night before in isolation is a nice touch, but you combine that with the other touch points that you place there, and then the journey they go through when you're meeting with them, all of a sudden you're not just 1% ahead, you're about 25-30% ahead.
Yeah, so something I'm really hot about with so let's, I guess, rewind a little bit. Like I set up Power Bespoke, my own estate agency, in 2010. That was 14 years ago. I've got a 15-year-old son, a 12-year-old son, a 6-year-old son, and a 3-year-old daughter. But when my son was born, my 15-year-old, like, I've got an extremely obsessive, addictive personality. And before he was born, what was I, 18, 19, 20, 21? It was all about, working for an estate agency, but also equally as enjoying my social time and drinking drugs and girls and clubbing and partying and stuff like that. And when he was born, I had to really switch my obsession somewhere else and my focus. So I decided just to start an estate agency. Why not? That sounds good. And so whatever I do, I'm extremely structured and organized. Like, I've got a pre-advice meeting checklist that to this day is 10 years old. To this day, I go through it every single time. I've been doing it 20 years. But I'm a massive believer as well that nothing breeds failure like success. You think you're the big show, and then you start, marginal corrosion is just as important as marginal gains.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that, they marginally improve, but behind the scenes, they're marginally corroding as well. So you've got to keep the levels rising. I'm sure we go deep, but yeah, so that's a bit of a background. And now I'm just obsessed with tennis and estate agency.
You've managed to diversify the obsession.
Yeah, and I'm obsessed with my wife and my children, obviously. But outside of family stuff, it's all
that goes without saying, Perry. That goes without saying. And as I said earlier, for anyone that doesn't know you, firstly, I would say follow Perry. The one thing I want to, I guess, get out quite early on, you give so much back to the industry. And I appreciate you do boot camp, which of course returns on its investment, and you've got your online course that people can subscribe to. So I appreciate that you have monetized in areas, but you give so much value for Sweet FA. What's the leading driver behind that for you?
Because when I was 12, I committed to improving the industry. So I'm literally trying to improve the industry. I don't think you can say things like you want to do something. You know, talk is cheap, actions speak louder than words. So yeah, you know, deep rooted, 12 years old, single mum, had a really bad experience with an estate agent. And at that point I was like, this can't be that hard. I'm going to improve the whole bloody process for people. So I do and the thing is with the training and the coaching now and the boot camps and the 12-month accelerator programs that we've just started doing in 2024, it's just pocket money. That's like my holiday fund. It's not my main income. Power Bespoke pays my mortgage, feeds my kids, supports my life. That's my main focus. And it's like the little test bed for stuff that I can then share, because I'm also I once done the talent dynamics. I'm all interested in disc profiles and that kind of nonsense.
Love that,
yeah, but I really like it.
Nonsense, love it.
And I was doing it, and I was like, it was talent dynamics that I'd done. Similar to like a wealth dynamics. And I was like, come on, Steve Jobs, come on, I want to be a Steve Jobs. But what actually come out of it was my primary profile was Henry Ford. So
innovation,
take things apart, put them back together, more of a mechanics, and that is so me. I want to improve things just because it can be improved, not because it needs to be improved sometimes. That's one of my biggest kind of drawbacks. And then my secondary profile was like a Steve Jobs kind of thing.
Yeah. So that's a powerful blend. That's a powerful blend, right? Because you've got the innovator, the person who wants to drive things forward, but you've then got that charismatic nature, you know, that presenter in you that wants to just share amazing things with the world.
Yeah. I'm like people might look at me and think I'm a bit arrogant, cocksure on myself, but I genuinely believe that there are people are like, what's your newest competing estate? Like, what's your competition? And I don't know if I'm psycho or something, but I genuinely believe there is no competition for us, because we're us and they're them. And there's enough to go around. Like the client has got, hopefully, if you know who you're trying to serve, not every client you're trying to go after. So that's probably 75% of the market ruled out anyway. So why not share it? Ultimately, my mission, my kind of personal mission, is to improve the experience for the consumer, for the mover, for the end user. And I do that through our team selling property and helping people move at Power Bespoke. But it's even nicer to know that someone up in Northumberland and Scotland is kind of taking some of the things that we're doing down south and doing it in their business to benefit the client moving that I've never met, touched, or spoken to.
Yeah. So you can inadvertently influence through the delivery of the value you share. And so you started Power Bespoke 14 years ago.
So I had a business partner for the first 3 years, and so I had a company called Power O'Shea Estate Agents. That was me and Paul O'Shea, as in Croydon. Lovely bloke. We just, after 3 years, we had difference of direction and opinions. We're still in touch now, good mates. He was much later in life than me. Had a couple of kids already. I just had one. Wasn't with my son's mum. So I was just like, when I'm not with him, I'm all in working. He wanted to pull back a little bit, and so I was just like, look, we've had a good run of it, but let's go our own separate ways. So 2014, October 2013, I set up Perry Power Limited, which is now trading as Power Bespoke. And we went live 1st of January 2014. So 10 years I've been operating Power Bespoke.
You've just turned 10 and 10th anniversary. And so back in 2014, you kicked off with Power Bespoke. You've then gone on a journey. And would it be fair to say, Perry, because I know that we said offline, I said, is there anything that's untouchable in the conversation? And you said, absolutely not. Everything's fair game. So would it be fair then, based on you sharing that there have been bumps in the road? There have been moments where, you know, you've hit difficulty or you've struggled or the business might have been in jeopardy?
Yeah, so 2014 I was set up. A good estate agent on his own. 2017 we were halfway through the year. We almost went bust. We literally were cashless. We were 50 grand loss that year, 2017. At the 6-month mark, I was literally fucked, really. And that's when I went to we had a holiday booked to Cape Verde, just me and my then girlfriend. And I had a ring in my bag. I just spent 5 grand on the ring that I didn't really have. And I kind of knew that I'd come back from that lovely holiday in Cape Verde proposing to my now wife. And the business would probably last a month or two. So that was horrible. But what happened is whenever we haven't been away since without the kids, but whenever I used to have holidays without children, I would always pick up a book. W.H. Smith. It's kind of what you got to do when you're going on holiday. And I picked up a book called Built to Grow. And I read it on holiday and I was completely obsessed by it because it was like the E-Myth, which I loved. I'm all about processes, systems, standard operating procedures, turnkey business, slot in person in here, follow the process, proceeds will come. Don't try and reinvent the wheel, and test once you get to a level of success, I suppose. And that was written by Royston Guest. So after reading that book, I was really into it because what it is, it's a business growth framework.
Okay.
And I was reading it thinking, wow, we do that. Oh shit, we're not doing that though, and we could improve in that area. So got back in Cape Verde, stalked the hell out of him to be like, I need you to mentor and coach me. I am
anything to do with your obsessive nature?
Very likely, yeah. I sent gifts to his office back then. I was hounding him. I was hounding his PA. 3 months of hounding. I sent emails to be like, look, I've read your book. It's amazing. I've implemented some of the stuff from it. It's really helping the business. And it was at that point getting me out of some tricky situations. But I want more. I really want to meet you. Can you mentor and coach me? I've got this thing about, I don't like having industry mentors and coaches.
I hear you. Yeah.
Business coaches, I know how to be an estate agent. I know how to, you can always improve, but we collectively as an industry, we've got groups like the Power Agent that we're all in. We can all improve off each other. I need someone, I'm no Lord Sugar. That's my problem. I need someone to tell me the business mechanics and how to run a business, not how to get a listing or get yourself in the living room.
Yeah.
So then I stalked the hell out of him. I got an email. I've still got it, and I remember it. It dropped in my inbox to say Royston's, because Royston lives in Jersey, and he used to travel back a few times a week from Jersey to England. And she said he's got 30 minutes in between getting dropped off at the airport and his flight back. Meet you in Costa, South Terminal. Bring a list of things that you want to go through with him. And I had obviously a list that was massive. We didn't get through all of it. But he gave me some loads of advice at the time. I went away like a starstruck. I was like, yeah, I'll do this, Royston. I'm going to go and do this now. I think a month later, I got back to him and said, I've done it all. Here's the results. And he was like, great. Now, he really saw something in Power Bespoke because he's been on executive boards for Countrywide many, many years ago. And he deals with some very big businesses. Then there's little old me. But I think he saw something in that I was trying to fill a real space. You had your Purple Bricks at the time and you had your sleepy high street agents, and we were really early in one, the self-employed model, and two, that whole no high street kind of hybrid home base, whatever you want to call it now, which has become very much more acceptable. Back then it really wasn't. 8-9 years ago it was still frowned upon. COVID helped a lot with that. And it's interesting, like I bopped up to a viewing today on a £1.2 million house before going to tennis in my tennis gear. And I shook the guy's hand. I was like, look, excuse the attire. I'm going straight off to tennis after this. And he was like, how well do you play? I was like, I'm pretty good. He was like, I'm well into tennis. I'm a member at Reigate Tennis Club. We should play one day. And it's just mad, isn't it? Like, you'd never think that's frowned upon. You should be in a suit and all this kind of nonsense. But you make your own reality. I kind of believe in.
Totally agree.
So on that journey, 2017, I was completely shagged, and Royston really helped me, coached me, mentored me. I was in some low places, clawed it back, all great, big growth. 2019 came. Going into 2020, I was about to go. I think we had about, 12, 13 agents back then. And then COVID hit. That royally fucked us. I'll explain why in a minute. And in 2022, I had a diagnosed mental breakdown, basically. I was, our fourth baby had just arrived. Planned, semi-planned, probably not planned to that month, but me and my wife knew we wanted to have another child. We've got a boy and a girl together now. We had, I adopted her son, but he's my son.
Yeah.
And then I had a 15-year-old from previous relationship. COVID was like, I learned the lesson, don't have a partner agent model during COVID, because we were missing out. We missed out, self-funded business. No, I own all the company, no business partners, no bank borrowing. And we lost out on about £250,000 of equivalent help should have had our agents been employed.
Of course.
So we were still paying out high revenue fee shares fee splits to agents, but we were getting no additional prop up help for that money going out. So it was kind of survival mode through 2020 and 2021, as everyone knows. And then I think as it started to recover, it just all hit me at once, and I was just an absolute mess. So a couple of years of treading water. We had a nice, good team. We had a strong lettings business. We were just muddling through, not making any massive waves. And then I kind of woke up again, I would say, start of this year, really. I've said, right, let's put the foot on the gas again now. And that's it. Here we are.
It's very noticeable with your output, by the way, that, we're putting the foot on the gas from the start of this year. Your content has ramped up, the volume, it's all skyrocketed. And so I think one of the big things that people listening in, it's all well and good. Look, we've had a good array of guests on. We've talked about lots of positive stuff on the pod so far. But I think it's really, really important for people to understand the downside. And that's kind of... I knew a little bit of your background. I didn't know that you had the breakdown. And so I'm sorry for someone that I respect that you would have to go through that. But I think it's good for people to understand that for someone that holds the stature that you do in the industry, and for someone that a lot of people do look to, Perry, as an inspiration within the industry, that there is always them character flaws, the side of you where it's like, okay, I may be on the outside robust like an armadillo, but on the inside, I feel like I'm breaking. How did you recognize it? Like, what led you to the point of getting the diagnosis?
I hadn't cried since I was probably 13 years old when my granddad died. And then, I was having a shower one day, literally collapsed into a ball of mess in my shower tray, pan. Just couldn't control myself. And I was like, leading up to that, I kind of lost my mojo. I was like, I'm not sure I've got the energy for this. 4 kids, team, business, growing, financial commitments, like risk. I became very, your temperament for risk changes a lot when you've got a mortgage, a wife, and 4 children. I was very much like, when it was me and my son that I saw at weekends when he was really young, I was like, yeah, fine. What's the worst that can happen? Like, but so it all changed a lot. We were building the business to a nice size, and I still work a lot because I'm obsessed, a workaholic, but I enjoy what I do. I found myself losing my mojo, found myself kind of having probably 2 or 3 months of, I'm not enjoying this no more. And I'm a big fan of, if you're not enjoying it 80% of the time, 80-20 rule has to prevail. Then you need to change what you're doing. And I love every 80% of estate agency. And I just wasn't feeling it. I was finding it hard to get out of bed in the morning. I wouldn't say it was kind of dark depression, but I had serious thoughts of, I'm pretty handy with tech and automation and marketing, and I find that fascinating as well. So I contemplated just knocking it on the head, to be honest, but pulled myself out of it. Luckily, family and friends supported well, had a therapy. I think, men don't talk about things. I didn't really talk about it, but people could see a change in me. And then I got a therapist for a couple of months, dug myself out of the hole, and now I'm back to winning. But it's tennis, having that, I said before, up until just before COVID, I had no other vocation outside of Power Bespoke and estate agency.
No release.
No release. And now if I don't get my two hours of tennis, a week, my 2 hits in, then that even affects me mentally. So I think there's what I've kind of learned is there's 3 stages now of mental health. There's kind of proactive mental health management. There's mental, there's diagnosed mental health. You're mentally unwell, you're mentally ill. I didn't have any medication or nothing like that. It was just a dark period. And then there's the middle one, I guess, which is being aware of it. But it all starts, like anything, with better to prepare than recover.
Yeah. No, see, it's interesting. You've shared a couple of things here that I just wanted to pull on. One of them is obviously you've referenced Royston and the impact he's had. So having that coaching, that mentorship. Then you've talked about obviously when you went through this dark phase, but then you sought the help and you got the help, and having that therapist, which again is having that coaching, that mentoring through a process, right? And so it strikes me from what you shared there that you are a believer in surrounding yourself with those types of people that can mentor, support, steer, and guide you on that journey, and being aware enough that it's going to add the value.
Yeah, and it's I guess deal with it early. I should have really sought help when I felt myself not feeling myself. If that makes sense. But I let it wane a little bit. I was like, nah, get up, get in the office, just kind of push through it. But that's just putting a plaster on it. You need to deal with the root thing. And even that, Royston's, for me, he's become a really good friend, but he's more of a life coach, to be honest. I really look up to the life he's built, and he's very understated. Like he's not the kind of guy to be sitting there in front of his £5 million house taking pictures of himself. He's got huge amounts of success and wealth, and you wouldn't know it because he doesn't want to flaunt it, but he's extremely successful. He's got a beautiful wife, lovely children. So he's more of a life look up to in life, someone like that. He's achieved a lot of things, continues to. So yeah, Royston's a big part of it. Therapist, my family, my mum, my wife, my team obviously noticed a very different me for a couple of months, but they rallied around, recognized it, and really kind of helped. Got rid of some dead wood in the business, to be honest. It was probably partly causing it as well.
Right.
Kind of leeches that are just not doing much other than trading on our coattails a little bit. Condensed the team down. No team problems. I wouldn't say no team problems, but much less team member things to deal with. Because I guess your business gets to a stage where you go from estate agent and leader to generally a HR bloody consultant when your team gets to a certain size. And I was like, I can't be doing that. I need to be in living rooms. I need to be leading from the front. So Tash took over all of the back end, my wife, operation. Right. We got a head of sales, head of lettings. Simon heads up our partner agent side of things. So I just really decided to let go. And what happens is, interestingly, because I'm obsessive, I wouldn't say I'm a control freak, because I also like letting people do their thing. But when you let go, then you really start to grow.
Let go to grow. I like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that as well, because it would be fair to say, if you talked to anyone that I'm surrounded by, very similar. Once I get my teeth into something, I will go all the way down the rabbit hole, become completely obsessed by things. And the letting go bit is the difficulty, I find. And so it's interesting to hear you say that, because I read something recently. It's funny, isn't it? When you start really paying attention, I guess it's that whole awareness piece. When you start paying attention to something, it starts to present itself more. So I've really been in that headspace of like, how do I let go of that? How do I start to just accept that, okay, maybe it can't be done 100% the way I want it, but 75 to 80% is better than 100% of me crashing and burning. And so these little signals been appearing, YouTube videos I've watched and books I'm reading, etc., to kind of say, right, just empower the people around you. And they don't need to be at 100%, because you're going to guide them and you're going to steer them on the journey. So it's interesting to hear you then coin that phrase, let go to grow.
Yeah, and I've learned that, and we've gone through stages. Like the stage we're at right now is that we're only taking on kind of director, manager level agents, but whether it be employed or self-employed. So we run both models, and both have got their pros and cons. And what I really wanted to make work was nurture some inexperienced people to come into the industry. But then I realized that we might want that for the industry, not bringing their bad habits to the business, but that's no good for me personally. So you have to draw the line. There was that yin and yang between, so now we've onboarded 4 new agents in the last 2 months, and they're all former directors of their own brands, or manager level. Steph is formerly managers of corporate estate agencies, and so it's kind of your way around the living room. We're going to help you get your fees up. Here's how we do it here. So our what we call a climatization period is what most will call like an onboarding. We're literally the first month is just because Andrew's just come in last week, Monday week he started. Great guy, everything we stand for. Been an agent for years. Just been battered and beaten up by the wrong leadership behind him. And he's like, whoa, I know you guys were different because and he's on our patch. So he's been seeing us competing with us, I suppose. And he was like, I know you guys were different, but I didn't know quite how much. This week just blowing my mind. And luckily it was a long weekend. So I was like, look, go and recuperate. I'm a massively big fan of, if you want to be in the performance zone, you've also got to be in the recovery zone as well. So we've got a viewing specialist team that cover our agents' diaries for weekends. And so we all had like a nice 3-day break, and then it's back at it into the performance zone Monday to Friday. And he's a great example of what we stand for. He's probably 50, maybe. Hopefully he don't watch this and I've got this wrong. But genuine care for people. Just got a bit bored of subscribing to market share metrics and that kind of nonsense. And he's really enjoying it. But I'm really enjoying elevating him. Like his first week, he's done his first video tour, and he's like, "Oh, this is amazing." They would never let me do video tours because I'm all about. People say to me like, "Why do you promote your agents so much?" And I was like, "Well, why wouldn't you promote your fucking agents? They're the ones that are going to be sitting in the living room."
Of course, the personal brand.
Then high five to them, and just by working with me, that'll go down well on their CV. So I subscribe to the whole Richard Branson stuff.
I was literally about to say, train them so well that they can leave, but treat them so well they don't want to.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I subscribe to. And
So
we're doing Facebook ads for them, we're doing videos for them, we're obviously marketing them because they're the ones. It's not call Power Bespoke for an advice meeting, speak to Andrew for advice on moving house. And the whole time he's with Power Bespoke, then great.
Love that. I love that, and that's why we had to get you on the pod, because we've had a few interactions before now, but not to any great length. But I knew there was so much value that you could share, and there's so much in this first portion of what we discussed that's kind of very mindset heavy. And I don't know whether you agree, but I think personally, obviously, Jack and I run a self-employed model, and we've got this real strong belief that the person's mindset is going to dictate their trajectory. So they could have all the talent, they could have the background of years and years and years in the industry, but if their head isn't in the right space, then they're going to really struggle. From what you've shared on this part of the pod so far, it strikes me that you would agree with that.
Yeah, but I do also believe that mindsets can be shaped.
Agree. Yeah.
So we've had it where, and we get it a lot, my whole kind of, for our partner agent model, we only speak to people that are currently with a self-employed partner agency brand, and it hasn't gone too well for them. Like, that's who I want to speak to for our partner agent model, and that's it. The employed side of the business, like, people's mindset can be shaped, I believe. So as long as their intentions are right and they're in the industry for the right reasons, I can help them with, because a lot of mine say, "Oh, this is too hard." And it's not too hard. You're just unstructured. That's all. It's really easy, actually.
So they need to be open-minded to the ability to change. I suppose I positioned it in the wrong way. Having self-belief is the start point, but if they're not open to the idea of doing things, especially Power Bespoke, the way we operate at the Avenue, if they're not open to the idea of doing things differently, if they're not open to the idea that actually you can push these boundaries, that they are glass ceilings that you're worried about. If they're not open to that, then there's the struggle.
Like Andrew, for example, joined recently, and he's like, "How'd you get such good fees?" I'm like, "I just tell him my fees 2% before I go out there." He's like, "What? Don't they cancel?" And I was like, "Some of them do, yeah, but some of them don't."
And why waste your time on the ones that cancel?
I know. And he's like, "Fucking hell!" And I'm like, "This ain't rocket science. It's on our website. This ain't rocket science." It amazes me of estate agency, right? That in 2024, when you can get an answer to everything in seconds, the only thing you can't get an answer to is what your fees. Oh, let's discuss that when we come round to see you. You know, they range between this and this, depending on how saleable your house is. Like, just put it on your website, mate, and save yourself a lot of ag.
Yeah. Save yourself the hassle. The fee merchants won't come to you then. That saves you a lot of time. So you've kind of segued nicely there. So we've talked about the background, Power Bespoke's journey, your personal journey. With 2024, you can press a button and you can get the answer to anything in a moment. What do you see the future of the industry over the next 5, 6, 7 years? What are you thinking? What are you working on? How are you going to innovate within Power Bespoke? Obviously, without giving away too much secret sauce.
No, there's no secret sauce. I think just the same what I've been saying for the last 5 years. The future is owned by tech-enabled true experts to succeed. Like, tech and platforms and stuff is there to enable the agent to deliver more of their expertise. Will it be I definitely don't think it would be majority self-employed. I think there'll be a high, Steph is one of our biggest bankers in the business, and she doesn't want to be self-employed. She wants she's got a nice tasty salary. She wants to bang in, probably do close to 300 grand this year personally. And she just likes to get paid well. She's loyal. She's a massive brand advocate. She doesn't want to, she's 30 something now. She wants to not, like, the industry is a little bit jumping around in it. She wants to get her feet under the table. So yeah, the future is just owned by better quality agents ultimately, I think.
So tech-enabled experts, that's the phrase you shared. What does that look like to you? What does a really high caliber elite agent that is tech-enabled look like?
It means that a lot of so I guess you look at Power Bespoke, right? So we've invested a load of money in the Salesforce CRM platform.
Yeah.
Which automates pretty much every admin mundane task that you can think of, leaving the agent to deal with positive feedback from viewings, converting offers, negotiating property purchases. Where I do see the future is more people and more agents should and will be offering buyer representation services. We've got a client in Barbados at the minute that's paying us double what the selling agent's getting for us to help him buy it and hold his hand buying it. So we're charging 2% of the purchase price to help him buy it.
And he's buying here.
Yeah. And the agent selling it's getting 1% for selling it. I've done no pictures. I've done no floor plans. I've done no viewings. Like, it's he just wants our expertise. Georgie's handling it in the team. So we're just about to renege we've had a really poor survey. I'm about to handle the renegotiations. So that's more the future. Employed or self-employed doesn't matter. I just wish more agents would value the fact that they are experts.
Yeah.
And they should be charging the adequate amounts of money to sellers and or buyers for that expertise.
It's an interesting topic, and Fred, you pull on, because obviously it's the thing, isn't it, over the pond, America, Australia, etc. So I guess one of the questions that people listening into this pod would want to then delve into is, okay, great. I, by the way, completely subscribe to the idea that there should be buyer representation and that there's some expertise. I was chatting to one of our partner agents this morning who came over to my office, and he's just done a deal for someone. He's got them $6,000 more than their baseline on what they were expecting to sell for, but he's also then helped them with their onward negotiation. They gave him the price that they were prepared to pay. He saved them another $6,000 there. So in total, he's worth $12,000 on top of his fee to that individual. When he sat and we were talking it through, like, I hadn't thought about that from an onward marketing perspective, in terms of, portraying his support and expertise to his next client. He would only be thinking about the fact that he was able to agree the sale. Well, look at the value you've added. And so let's look at the Barbados client, for example. How did that relationship even come about? How did you end up representing him?
You wouldn't believe this, right? He follows another estate agent on Twitter.
Okay.
Right? This guy in Barbados. And the guy in Barbados, the parents live in Barbados. The son lives in my town.
Yeah.
And the son is a teacher, never bought a first-time buyer. Parents actually work in real estate in Barbados, but they're the perfect client. They understand that their expertise has no relevance in the UK, just like I'd have no idea what I'm doing really with selling property in Barbados. So they pay for expertise, just like you pay an accountant, a solicitor, maybe a private doctor. So this guy in Barbados messages the estate agent that you follow saying, hey, my son's looking to buy a property in the UK. Can you help? It was like, literally he said, I'm really sorry, but I don't represent buyers. This guy, Perry Power, does though. And the rest is history. He messaged me, signed him up at 2% of purchase price. He even found the property. We've done a whole off-market property search as part of the service, but the property is on Rightmove with another estate agent. Son went to view it, said I liked it. And I was like, great, leave the rest to me. And me and Georgie negotiated, obviously, a discount off the asking price with the selling agent. They're using our solicitors, our surveyors, our mortgage advisors. It amazes me, right? Here's the problem with this industry in this country versus over the pond. If you're divorcing, and I hope I never have to, husband and wife go and get separate individual representation, right? It's borderline should be illegal that the same person can represent, I suppose, buyer and seller, juggle the relationship. And it also amazes me, and these are the things that I believe and I want to try and change, that buyers have professional advice and expertise at every single stage of the property transaction, apart from doing the deal in the first place. So you're a lone ranger in this, particularly first-time buyers. I really passionately love helping first-time buyers. The fees aren't as great because they're not spending £1 million generally, but the value you can deliver is huge. So that little old first-time buyer's got to ring up these estate agents and be given a load of cobs wallop from them, and a lot of the time lies, because we know our industry generally isn't the prettiest in the world. Left their own devices to negotiate against a hopefully quite experienced negotiator. When all that's done, then they instruct a solicitor, then their mortgage advisor cracks on to get the mortgage, then their surveyor gets a survey done. But up until that point, they're on their own, left to their own devices. So I think that's really poor. And the service has been around. The relocation agents, if you've got £1 million plus budget, will be your kind of search agent. But all that poor little old Mary and John that's got a 250 budget, company you're renting, and they're about to have their pants pulled down by a unscrupulous estate agent.
It's a really fair comment, a really, really fair comment. And it's definitely a route for agents to be thinking about. And it surprises me where you say that this person over in Barbados reached out to this agent on Twitter and they've then referred it on. I
literally replied to the guy saying, look, thanks for I appreciate you mentioning me, but you best get yourself to boot camp, my man, because you really should be taking that yourself.
Yeah, that is a sound investment.
And it's what's that going to be? That's going to be, it's a 370 property, $7.5 grand or so. And most agents around this area are struggling to get 3 on a sale. Acting for buyers is way more profitable than sellers because you've got no cost to serve. It's just your time.
Exactly. So, and so therefore you can do a lot more.
Yeah. And it's, and there's loads of situations where we've helped buyers, and I really enjoy it. So what you can't do is obviously represent both at the same time, but because it ties in our model. You know, we're Power Bespoke for a reason. We don't chase market share. We have not a huge property stock in one particular area. We're very geographically spread. We fly under the radar of all agents, really. No one really sees us as a competition or a problem.
Yeah.
And you switch your mindset from when you know that at some point you're going to need to call that agent that you're about to fall out with for potentially one of your buying clients, and you need to be on a level with them. You need to have all agents as your colleagues and allies rather than competition. There needs to be a mindset shift to that, because your clients are everywhere. And, you know, this whole Rightmove boycott group need to realize that for every 10 inquiries you get on a house, you've got an opportunity to offer them a search service and a negotiation service. And, you know, there's so much more being left on the table.
Let's pull on that thread. So there's the Rightmove boycott group. I had a chat offline with someone the other day, and it made me chuckle because they said exactly the same thing. You know, these people bitch and moan about the cost of Rightmove, but they spend next to no time looking at ways in which they can add value to their own proposition, become more valuable to the client, and therefore raise their own income. If someone is quibbling over a £400 a month raise in the Rightmove bill, they've got to look at their business rather than Rightmove.
Yeah, I love Rightmove.
Yeah,
love it.
You and me both. There's no greater value. It's just a continual lead source of opportunity, isn't it?
And it, you know, when I say to them, all right, fine. So you're frustrated that they've kind of got the number one spot of the market, they've got it cornered, and they're increasing their fees. If you were the only estate agent in your town, what are you going to do? You're going to drop your fees, are you? Like, it's just business. Get over it, adapt, and maybe knock your lease on the head of that office that's on the high street that you know deep down you don't really need, and go upstairs. So yeah, it's what you do with the inquiries that you get. Like, yes, Rightmove, you know, for me, everyone goes into an automated process. So the minute they inquire about a house for sale, 2 weeks later, they've either buying a house with us by then or they're not, most likely. And then they go into did you know we can find you something off market? And once you've found somewhere, download our 9-step, 4-day negotiation strategy for a property purchase. Have a read of this. That will help you. And if you want us to help you more hands-on, book a call here. And we had one last week, literally, that I've been putting a lot of YouTube content out for that particular reason. And he booked in, and literally first-time buyer, missed out on 3 houses, and he's so frustrated with himself. He don't even want a discount off their next house. He just wants to get the next house that he
just wants to make sure he gets it. Yeah.
So we sometimes charge a percentage of saving potentially. In this case, we'll be charging a percentage of the purchase price.
Brilliant. And I think that's one of the big things that anyone that's listening in to the last 40 or so minutes of us talking will hear the immense value that you bring, and you share a lot of gold. And I think anyone that isn't aware of you needs to head over and make sure they're following, because there's so much value that you share that people could implement with great ease. You also obviously have your course that people can work their way through, and there's lots of value in there. From your perspective, though, Perry, I don't doubt that you'll see an increase in following off the back of us having this conversation. But from your perspective, what does someone really need to consider to be an elite agent?
4 things: focus, consistency, structure, and discipline.
It's clearly a pre-rehearsed reaction, so that's clearly ingrained in you as a person, that those 4 things.
Yeah.
Just give us an overview of your feeling on all 4 of those items then.
Focus. So when you're doing something, nothing else exists. And my wife is like, you're a bit special, because when I'm in work mode, I haven't got a wife and kids. Like, my phone's on do not disturb most of the time when I'm in the zone. She's like, what if the kids there's an emergency? And I'm like, what would you have done before mobile phones? So, you know, ring 999, don't ring me.
Yeah.
So focus, and I'm talking, but this is where I think I'm wired up a bit differently at times, because I can go into deep work and not come out of it for days.
It's like the automations, though, isn't it? Like, I'm going down a bit of a rabbit hole on some automations at the minute. And last night I got home from work, put the kids to bed, literally got the Mac out straight away. I said to Hayley, look, just give me a couple of hours. I need to do this, because if I don't do it now, there's no point me even being in your presence if I just don't do this now. She's like, yeah, no problem. So the question for you then, from a focus point of view, you obviously have this innate ability to just go deep into whatever it is you're doing, and you can kind of get in the zone. Is there anything you do to get you into that state, to get in the zone? D&D on your phone is one thing, but is there anything else you do? Or do you just sort of, if you develop this natural ability to go into like deep flow?
No, so then you've got structure. So I structure deep work time. So, focus, let's go through it. So focus is that consistency. This industry ain't rocket science. It's do the things that work over and over again. And I keep sharing stuff on socials that I keep seeing, because everyone's talking about Facebook ads and all this kind of nonsense. And you're like, well, how many, if you had 100 buyers through your front door or through your front door last month, how many of those with houses to sell? So half of those, let's say 50%, 40% might be selling a house. How many of those got yourself into living room? And they're like, oh, I don't know. There's your first issue. Because when you look, you'll notice you probably only got yourself into 5-10% if you're lucky. That needs to be 37.5%, in my opinion. Ours is tracking at 27%. Still ain't good enough, but it's good enough to then move on to the next thing. So forget all the shiny new things. And I've been there 10 years later. I've wasted a hell of a lot of money on digital ads and stuff. But focus on being a great agent in the first place. Socials for show, deals are for dough. A bit like it's a bit like that. That's a golf saying, isn't it?
It's drive for show, putt for dough.
And I've tailored it for a estate agency, obviously. But so consistency, and if you saw my structure and calendar, it's just brutal. I put my wake up time and my bedtime in my daily work calendar. Obviously, tennis.
I remember when I messaged you saying, do you fancy jumping on the pod? And I said, normally we record on a Monday, and you're like, that'd be breaking the rules.
Yeah, I can't. That's client day. So every client, every Monday without fail. So it's just, and it makes life so much simpler as well, that level of structure.
Yeah.
So consistency, do the things that work over and over again. I've got this massive thing. I've got a guide that I'm happy to put on a link to if it's going to go anywhere, but it's the kind of 20 ways to generate high fee quality clients. And I've looked at all of our client acquisition methods in the last 24 months, and I've boiled it down into 20 areas. And I say to our team, consistency, pick 3 of those things. You can't, I'm a massive fan of the power of 3. We've got 3 core values, pick 3, go deep for 3 months, power of 3, and then review at the end of it. If one of the things is working really well, keep doing it. If one of the things is working average, keep doing it, but improve it. And if one of the things is doing shit, replace it with one of the other 17 on the list. And there's no point to reinvent the wheel.
Love that. Well, if you could ping that over to me, I'll add it into the show notes, because this will be on YouTube, it'll be on Spotify, Apple. So if you're happy to share that, then I'm sure people listening in will get great value from it, because that's a great share. So we've got focus, we've got structure.
Yeah, focus, structure, consistency.
Yep.
And then organization. So many estate agents I find, and even ones that have joined our team, I'm like, how have you got through your life your career as an estate agent being that unorganized? Like, you need organization.
So distill it, because I feel like there's a power of 3 issue here, because you've got 4.
Yeah.
Structure and organization. How are you distilling the difference?
So structure for me is knowing what you're going to do when. And organization is doing what you're doing when.
So structure is the strategy, organization is the tactics.
Implementation, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you allowing yourself enough time with your structure, but also are you organized enough to make sure you do give that client those 3 touches before you walk through the front door?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I didn't get time. Well, your organization's fucked then. You need to reorganize yourself. Run out of time isn't an excuse. So yeah, there's those 4 things.
Love
and
that.
They should be free, but I did try and make them free, but you just can't squeeze them into 3. It has to be 4.
Has to be 4. Has to be, especially when you distill structure and organization as 2 separate ones. Harry, like I did say before we hit record, there's a lot of synergy between the way you run your business, the way you think, the way you act, certainly the way I think, feel, and behave. And so we could very easily record so much more. You know, I haven't even touched on one of the things that you and I have a common love for, which is the automations and the way in which that can revolutionize a business. We haven't touched on that.
We'll do another one dedicated to tech and automation. That's an easy hour right there. Yeah.
That's where people can get really for the geeks out there. That's where we can go really deep. But for this one, I think it's been really, really good because you've shared some great mindset pieces. You've shared your journey, which I think is a fantastic one. I think it's a real journey of resilience. You know, you've had periods in time where you could have gone, fuck this, and thrown in the towel very easily, and you haven't.
And you know, just to finish on, like, I hope no one has to go through that, but then at the same time, I kind of hope they do as well, because I've kind of found my limits and I'm really aware of them now. And I'm also expecting to be pushed to those limits again at some point in my career, because I'm pushing hard. And when you push, you've got to crack a few eggs to bake an omelette, I think is the saying. And it's unfortunate that one of those eggs ended up being my mind and my brain, but the omelette was made. It's fine. I'm still alive and kicking. I'm still here. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. And my best man at my wedding during that period committed suicide. No one knew no one knew how or why. It just happened one day out of the blue. And you just think, Jesus, man, as much as it's horrible that I went through, it weren't as bad as him. So I kind of know rubber bands. Royston talks about glass balls, rubber balls. You know, some things in life are rubber balls and they'll bounce back, which is, you know, your work, basically. Have a couple of months of shit performance, fine, get back on the horse, pull it back. But your glass balls are yourself, your family, your kids, your mindset. When you drop that, you're smashed.
Yeah, and then it's practically game over, or a very, very long recovery of putting it all back together. And I think that's really, really important for people to hear, because, as I say, anyone that does know you that's listening in, there's a lot of positive energy around you. You're a very positive person. But to hear that someone that's as positioned as well as you are in the industry and has done as well as you have, that you've also gone through those struggles. I agree with you. To suffer hardship creates resilience. And so you've got to go through a little bit of that at times, I believe, if you do want to push on to the next level and find your true self.
Yeah.
And so, do you know, Perry, it's been brilliant to have you on. I'm sure in a month or two's time, we'll have to do a recording of Geeking Out on Tech. We'll probably do some screen sharing and all sorts.
Oh, yeah.
But for now, Perry, it's been an absolute pleasure. And until next time.
Take care.